With the NFL draft over and done with, it is time to go out and give our grades to each and every single team. I have 8 videos lined up for you guys, each and every division, and letting you know how I felt about each and every team, what they did in their premium picks, their trades, their reaches, their steals. I wanted to give some context behind what these grades actually mean when I hand them out, and especially for day 3, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Days 1 and 2, the value and how good of a pick they were, but for day 3, I'm not going to sit here and hyper-analyze every single team's, 6th and 7th round pick and nitpick them and say, well, he was wide receiver 28 on my board and, you took him over wide receiver 24. It's like, at that point, it's just a little annoying to just go and nitpick every single draft pick. So most day 3 picks will be C plus, a fine pick. I'm not gonna like overly bury a team for that. C minus, I'll have picks that maybe I'm not as much of a fan of, but still, it's a 6th and 7th rounder. If you get a B minus, it's like that's a nice pick. I'm interested. I think that was a solid pick, a solid fit, decent value. If you get a B or better, and there was plenty of day 3 picks that got B plus, even A pluses in day 3, so that kind of scales upwards for how good of a value and how good of a pick that you made. I put in a lot of effort during this draft season, making sure I had like over 200 players scouted and got everything down, graded these things, and got the videos up to you as quick as I possibly can, so any support would be much appreciated. But I will be going through each of these teams in their divisions, I guess from worst to best, among the 4 teams. So let's get into our first team. To kick off the AFC South, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a really interesting draft. Obviously, they pulled off the big trade at the start, but I will say this was a pretty good division when it came to the drafts that they had, and the Jaguars found themselves at the bottom because aside from 2 picks, I wasn't a big fan of what they did. Now you have to start with Travis Hunter, who, I mean, for as high of praise as you can have for Travis Hunter, I am checking all those boxes when it comes to high praise. I have called Travis Hunter one of the 5 greatest prospects in the history of the draft. I have said that he could be a Hall of Fame corner, he could be a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He is a type of prospect that just doesn't come around very often. So going out and trading an extra first round pick to get him, yeah, that's worth it. That's going to be worth it. Moving up to get Travis Hunter is going to be a great move. I don't care that they had to give up a first round pick. And to be honest, we'll eventually get to the Browns draft class in that division, where I do think maybe the Browns should have even gotten more for the number 2 overall pick, because you should put a premium on what Travis Hunter is and the type of player he is, and that he's not going to come around very often. So I thought for value, Jaguars did a good job. Travis Hunter is worth 2 first-round picks, and it's not just 2 first-round picks. The AFC South is, I think, like the most gettable division in the AFC. Like, if the Jaguars win the division next year, I'm not going to be shocked. The Texans have, they took a little bit of a step back, and the offensive line's an issue, and while we'll talk about their draft class, they still have some stuff to hash out, and I don't think they're a clear-cut favorite. And then, the Titans are still obviously got a long way to go, and we'll see how, their draft class goes, because we'll talk about that one in length. And then, with the Colts, it really just hinges on if Anthony Richardson can be a good quarterback for them, so that's kind of up in the air. The Jaguars, I think, are at the very least the number 2 team in this division, and with Travis Hunter coming in, they can win it. If Liam Cohen is as good of a head coach as I think he is, because I thought Liam Cohen was a good hire, yeah, the Jaguars can win the division, which means that pick that you traded is like the 20th overall pick in the next year draft. I think that's more than fair to trade for Travis Hunter. The Jaguars don't have any sort of belief in themselves that they're going to be picking in the top 10, so yeah, I would go and do the same thing. This is a move that I would make as well. Now, I don't need to go in length about Travis Hunter. We know how good he is. I will say, I am very curious on how much he is going to play both sides of the football, just because of the longevity concerns. Is he just going to play wide receiver with a little bit of corner? Is he going to play corner with a little bit of receiver? I do think corner with a little bit of receiver is the move, but it sounds like that he's going to be all receiver part-time corner, which I'm interested to see how a part-time corner in the NFL works, because I do feel like that's a position that you do need to be a little bit more involved in practice and in the meetings and everything. So I'm really curious how that's going to go. But for the rest of this draft, I was going into it thinking, after the Travis Hunter pick, like, man, the Jaguars are going to come out of here with a great draft. And I didn't love the rest of their picks, especially day two. You know, you traded the second round pick, so it's like, okay, you got two third rounders. I didn't love what they did with their two third round picks. They went Caleb Branshaw. I understand you do need cornerback help, but not a guy I really had in like the top 100 type of radar. I mean, nowhere near it for me. So I don't love that pick. It was a little bit of a reach on a position of need. And then Wyatt Milam was the other third round pick, and Milam definitely better value. I will say him going in the top 100 is fine. I personally didn't have him in my top 100 big board. I am more inclined to believe that Wyatt Milam's going to be a better player, though, and will get some opportunities there. The Jaguars do need some offensive line help. So, third round, they very much went for need over just pure best players on the board, which is understandable. But when you do that, you do leave yourself susceptible to maybe taking some players that are not as good as the 88th or 89th overall pick indicate, especially for Wyatt Milam. I do feel like there was some pretty nice offensive linemen on the board still, but finding interior offensive line help in this draft was going to be a little difficult, and Milam I do think is probably going to end up playing guard for them. So we'll see if you know, picking Milam over some of these other interior linemen and some of these other tackles is going to pan out well. Maybe, I don't know. I just can't really defend the Ransaw pick, though. That one is like, I don't really have much else other than, like, yeah, that was a need, but that was a little high for me. But then in the fourth round, they made the other pick that I really liked, and that's Bashal Tutin, who, a fun player, really fun player, and getting him in an offense with Liam Cohen's going to be exciting. And I mean, you look at the explosiveness of this offense now, it's like, my goodness, you got Bashal Tutin, Travis Hunter, and Brian Thomas. It's home run hitters at three different spots on your offense, and I still very much believe in Trevor Lawrence. I do think there's a lot of negativity around Trevor Lawrence just because he hasn't been number one overall pick generationally good, but, you know, he's been banged up. He's had a rough situation with Doug Peterson. It's been a team that in the Jaguars, even when they did win their playoff game and they did have successful seasons, one thing that I've always thought with this team over the past couple of years is they've lacked star power. And I mean, if you need star power, Travis Hunter's going to give it to you. They've just lacked superstars. And now Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas, you got some superstars, and we'll see if Bashal Tutin can be a star player for them, because very much ETN is going to be on his way out. I don't know if they're going to get a lot in return for a trade. I would imagine maybe like a fourth round pick at best. I don't think you're going to get a lot in a trade for ETN at this point. He's a solid running back, but you know, teams aren't going to give up crazy packages for a running back that isn't like insanely good. So it's going to be Bashal Tutin and Tank Bigsby, who Bigsby, interestingly enough, was like, I thought, really bad as a rookie, and then last year it was like really good. I thought Bigsby like took a massive leap up, kind of like a sleeper most improved player type. I thought he was really solid last year, and having, you know, Bashal Tutin and having Tank Bigsby is a nice 1-2 punch, complementary duo, and I am interested to see if one, Tutin can really up his ability in the pass catching game, and two, can he hang on to the football though? You know, if he can get a step forward in his receiving game, then yeah, he'll be seeing even more third down snaps, but it's going to be most important to just have him hold on to the football. He fumbled a little too much in college, and if he can hang on to the football, you're going to see a very fun little 1-2 punch there. If they keep ETN for the season, then I'm interested to see how that trio works, but I would imagine ETN's on his way out. But this offense, I mean, like I said, 3 home run hitters, and it's going to be really explosive. And if Trevor Lawrence can be as good as I think he can be, which is that of a top 10-ish quarterback in the league, I do think Trevor Lawrence is still that good. He just needs some stability, some structure, and to stay healthy. That just, it's going to be, if the offensive line also can help him out a little bit. You know, the offensive line took a little step back, but they didn't really do a whole lot in this draft to address that with Wyatt Milam. We'll see if Milam can be a day one guy for them. But the rest of their day 3 picks, 6th and 7th rounders, just kind of fill-in guys. I mean, you took a center from USC, maybe. You took another running back in LaQuinn Allen, somebody who was a lot lower on my running back list, so 7th round makes a lot of sense. Took a safety, a linebacker, typical day 3, late day 3 picks, picks that are basically 200 and beyond. So not going to really jump on them too much for those picks, but nothing that stands out among those bottom 4. This draft is heavily carried by the fact that you got Travis Hunter and you got Bashal Tutin, and you're just going to hope that Tutin is as good of a running back as you're hoping, and some of the issues that he has can fix itself, and then you're just going to hope Travis Hunter is as generational as I think he is, and a lot of people think he is, which I do think he will be. For this draft, I guess it's not going to matter. The grade's not going to matter if Travis Hunter is, a legend. You're going to come out of this draft saying, oh, well, we got a Hall of Famer. But Travis Hunter isn't the only thing you got. You have to grade what they did with the other picks, and aside from Tootin, I thought the rest of the picks were a little bit lacking. But I at least can say, like, if you just are looking at, you got Travis Hunter, give him a high grade. Sure. I'm going to at least, grade some of these other picks, though, and hold that against them a little bit, because you can't just draft Travis Hunter and then put the put the computer down and say, oh, yeah, we're good. Maybe some people would say you can, but I would have liked to see them do a little bit better, just in the 3rd round, really. That's the only, I guess, knock on them. The next 2 drafts in this video did get a B grade for me, so I guess a tie, but I gave, I guess, the slight nod to the team that I put at number 2. Texans come in here at number 3, where they had a pretty fun draft, not the direction I fully expected them to go, but it's hard not to be at least a little excited if C.J. Stroud gets more than half a second to throw the football. You make the curious decision to go and trade Laramie Tunsil, which don't know if that was the right move, but it was a really unique spot that the Texans were in, because after Stroud's rookie season, you go and have this great rookie year. Tank Dell, takes a step up and has a big year, more than what you would have expected from Tank Dell, and some of these other players had great years, and Derek Stingley, one of the best corners in the league, D'Amico Ryans, one of the better coaches in the league, and it's like, okay, next offseason, we go all in. We get Joe Mixon. We get Stephon Diggs. We get some of these more win-now players. We're ready to go and maybe make a run because we have a quarterback on a rookie contract. And last year, that just didn't happen. And then I think the Texans maybe realized, like, okay, maybe that's not the best idea. We'll reel it back a little bit and try to build a little bit stronger of a foundation. Our foundation isn't as strong as we thought it was to go out and win a Super Bowl. And they're taking maybe a little bit of a longer-term foundational approach to this instead of just, hammering home these win-now players at every spot. They go and trade Laramie Tunsil. Still, I don't know if that was the best move, but, I mean, you're going to try to get what you can for one of your older, more valuable players. I just don't know if taking apart the only good player on your offensive line, on an offensive line that was already arguably the worst in the league, was the best move. But I do like the Ariante Ursary pick. I guess we'll start there since we're on the offensive line. Ursary, it's a little bit higher value-wise than I had him on my big board, but I do think that it was a really good fit for them. It was a really good pick for them, something that I probably, if I were in the Texans' shoes, would have also done. So, you get a nice B+ there. I am worried a little bit still for this offensive line. I think they needed to do maybe a little bit more. I would have liked to see them spend one of those other 3rd-round picks, notably the Jalen Smith pick, on another offensive lineman, because, you go get Ursary, but you don't even really invest a whole lot. Like, even if you could have taken some lottery ticket offensive linemen in, like, the 6th and 7th round, I would have liked that just to give yourself something, give yourself a little bit of a chance. But if you're leaving with just Ursary, I guess it's okay, but I would have liked to see them do a little bit more. That's maybe holding the grade back a little bit. But then the other 2 picks that are really notable in day 2, you go and you draft Jaden Higgins at 34, which is pretty spot on to where I had him on my big board. I was not expecting this pick. I was expecting them to take a wide receiver with one of their first picks. I don't think that came as a surprise, because Tank Dell, unfortunately, we don't know what he is going to be like for the future, and they let Stephon Diggs walk, which was the right move. But I wasn't expecting Jaden Higgins. It was a fun little surprise. I would have thought that, honestly, Jalen Noel would have been one of the players that they would have picked. I was like, man, Jalen Noel, Nico Collins, if, John Mechie can come in. And I one thing I will say is, like, man, this kind of stinks for John Mechie, because I actually think he could be a pretty solid number 3 receiver for you. And I was like, okay, you got Mechie. This Texans team just loves stacking up receivers. I mean, even last year, they had so many receivers that they had to cut Noah Brown, who ended up becoming a starter for Washington. So they go to the third round. I'm like, okay, you get Jalen Noel, which was even more surprising that they spent 2 of their top picks on wide receivers, because I was at the very least thinking, like, okay, Tank Dell gonna be lost, but you brought in Christian Kirk, because I'm like, okay, 1-year rental maybe on a Christian Kirk to see what he can give you as a number 3, a number 4, whatever the case is. But now Higgins, Collins, Noel, Christian Kirk, Tank Dell eventually will come back from injury next year. I would imagine also Mechie is still going to contribute. You have Xavier Hutchinson. They signed Justin Watson. I don't know why this Texans team is obsessed with having, like, so many receivers. They like having, like, they like going, like, 6 deep at wide receiver, because even though Xavier Hutchinson, maybe not a crazy name, he was a player I liked, and I feel like whenever he does play, he's pretty solid. For a 6th receiver, too. Like, Xavier Hutchinson's the type of dude who's like, okay, number 4 receiver, a really nice number 5. He's like their number 6 or number 7 receiver. It's like, man, you don't need this many guys. So I can't give the picks like a A+ home run. They were value-wise about right. Noel was a little bit of a steal, but also it's like, I don't know if you needed a receiver that bad. If you rolled into next season with Nico and Higgins and Kirk and Mechie, I would have been okay with that. But yeah, get Jalen Noel too. Why not? It's a lot of weapons for Stroud to throw to, and then you get Jalen Smith in the 3rd round, another one of these cornerback picks, just like the Jaguars, where I didn't really love. And I think this is a theme with this division, because the Colts also had a corner pick in the 3rd round that I didn't really like that much. So we'll talk about that one. But these teams all took cornerbacks in the 3rd round that I was like, man, it's a little high for me, but it is what it is. 4th round, you go trade for this pick, get Woody Marks, who is going to be a really nice receiving back. I do think this was a role on the Texans team that they needed to fill, which is that 3rd down receiving back type. And Woody Marks, I think, is one of the better receiving backs in this draft. So to go and snag him in the 4th round, pretty solid. I think their biggest steal of the draft for day 3, though, Jalen Reed. So, took 3 Jalens and a Jaden. They got Jalen Reed in the 6th round, who I very much had a lot higher than a 6th rounder. I had him closer to a 4th rounder, and, I wouldn't have batted an eye if a team took him in the 4th round. I do think this is a player who does have some starting upside. More so maybe going to be a nice number 3 receiver, but I think he could start for you eventually, and I think he's got some really nice stuff to him. This is a team also that could kind of use a little slight amount of safety help, just because of the fact that Jalen Petrie, loved that they gave him a contract extension. He's kind of that star role for them, plays nickel, plays safety, plays in the box, plays everywhere. They signed CJ Gardner-Johnson, who talked about him a little bit in the Eagles review. Not a big CJ Gardner-Johnson guy. They got Bullock, but Jimmy Ward is also getting a little up there in age. This is probably an eventual Gardner-Johnson / Jimmy Ward replacement, I think. So you could be looking at their secondary in maybe a year or two and say, okay, you got a young Jalen Reed, you got a young Kalen Bullock, you got, Petrie, who's going to be under contract, Derek Stingley. So it's a nice young secondary that you're building. Also Kamari Lassiter. So I think the Texans are doing a good job there. And then the only other late pick that I kind of had as a notable player is Luke Lachey, who, very much an Iowa tight end, so maybe a safer bet than taking another random tight end. Iowa obviously produces good sound tight ends, so at the very least you're getting a rosterable, nice backup. But I do think Luke Lachey, I'm not going to be stunned if he becomes a starter for you. I do think, again, more so a nice number 2, but you know how these guys put out tight ends. He's got a long way to climb on this depth chart with guys like Cade Stover, who they drafted last year. They got, I think, Irv Smith is on the team, obviously Dalton Schultz. So he's got a long way to climb if he's going to be on the team. I think also Brevin Jordan. So, I mean, you're looking at maybe 4th or 5th tight end, but I do think he can make the roster. At the very least, he'll be on the practice squad and he'll do some stuff for you. I think he can actually be a long-term backup tight end for you. So overall, I think it's a pretty solid draft. No like A's, no home runs, no knocked it out of the park picks, but the only pick I'm kind of down on is Jalen Smith. Also, I guess Graham Mertz, but the 6th rounder. I'm not going to, go crazy for, oh my goodness, you drafted Graham Mertz in the 6th round. It's whatever. Not someone I thought was a draftable prospect, but, 197th pick is not something I'm going to get angry about. But I do like what they came out of from a talent perspective. I'm still worried about the offensive line, but I mean, Hey, you got Higgins, Knoll, Woody Marks. At the very least, you got a lot of people for Stroud to throw the football to. Now, can he get the football off in time? We'll see, but he at least has people to throw the football to. The next draft is the one I gave the slight edge over the Texans because I think the high end of this draft was a lot better, but I mean, there was also some lower lows. This Colts team either gave me a pick I really liked or a pick I really didn't like, so we go and start at the top. Tyler Warren, I mean, it's funny how this is a player that we've just kind of known is going to be a Colt. Somehow, some way, Tyler Warren's going to be on the Colts, and, well, he's on the Colts, and, I mean, yeah, they're probably celebrating that one. 14th pick for Warren, though. It's good value. It's a good pick. It was a position in need. Finally, this team has a tight end, and, I mean, I think he's just going to fit in this offense really well, and you know, we've known for so long that they want Tyler Warren, and the fact that they got him, yeah, good, a pick there. Then at pick 45, I do like them taking JT here, who is going to be exactly kind of what they need from a role perspective on a defense that last year had lost Samson Ebukam, who was one of the better run-stopping edges in the league. And I was really high on this Colts D-line last year because I'm like, man, you bring in Latu, and he's going to be this pass-rushing specialist for you, who I think is going to be really special. And then you have Ebukam on the other side. You got Kwity Paye, and you know, you have a deep edge rush group, and then DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, and then, you know, Ebukam got hurt, and I do feel like they still needed overall a complementary piece for Latu in the long term, and I think JT is about as good as it gets for a guy who is, you know, him and Mykel Williams are the two best run-stopping edges in the draft, so you couldn't get Mykel all the way up there at number 11, but getting JT in the second round is pretty nice, and like I said, is going to be a fun little duo with him and Latu, where Latu's going to go get you all the pass rushing, and then JT is going to be able to play on all the early down stuff, and I think if he could take a little step up as a pass rusher and give you some playable third down stuff, then I mean, you're looking at a really potentially special edge rush duo of two guys that I really like, and two guys who could do two very different things, so I really like the pick. It gets a B plus value wise. It's there. You know, a lot of people were kind of down on JT because of his inability to be an effective pass rusher and maybe his long term upside to be like a true number one edge. But I think you could be getting a high level, one of the top 5 to 10 edge rushing run stoppers and just an all around pretty solid number 2. Then their next two picks I wasn't a fan of. You know, Justin Wally at pick 80. Really didn't like that one that much. You know, especially when one of my guys was still on the board at that point in time, and a guy like Noel Williams, who I hyped up a little bit. I know maybe not the same exact type of player, but really high for a player in Justin Wally. C minus is maybe a little generous. Maybe I would have given that like a D plus. I don't want to like bury them too much. It is a later third round pick, but still just a lot higher than I would have taken a dude who was more so maybe like a 5th rounder. So I thought it was a little rich for me there. And then Jalen Travis, it was okay. You know, this team has always been drafting offensive linemen. I think they just love drafting offensive linemen in the 4th round specifically. But Travis was just big body, but you know, needs a lot of work everywhere else. Those two picks I was not really a fan of, but then they also had 2 picks in day 3 that I loved. DJ Giddens, he shouldn't have been there at 150. There was a lot of running backs that went a little bit higher than him that I was like, man, you took him over DJ Giddens? You know, even a guy like Trevor Etienne, who I'm like, okay, he has some nice upside. You have like, I think it was Jarquez Hunter was getting drafted. Some of these other guys was like, man, over DJ Giddens? I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit later with the Broncos in the AFC West, but like they took RJ Harvey in the 2nd round. I thought Giddens was a better player than RJ Harvey. I had Giddens higher rated. And it's like, man, you took RJ Harvey with the 60th pick. It's like, you got DJ Giddens in the 5th round. It's not even like they need a running back that badly, you know, with Jonathan Taylor. But for a number 2 running back, I do think that's maybe where the Colts have struggled a little bit, you know, outside of having Zach Moss. But, you know, there were times where they were given like Trey Sermon carries, and it was a Goodson who had that big drop like 2 years ago or whatever. They did need some running back depth, and I think Giddens is a little bit more than running back depth, though. I think he could actually give you some really effective play. And if Jonathan Taylor does go down with an injury, if Giddens steps in and maybe steals the show a little bit, I'm not going to be surprised. I really like DJ Giddens. Then their next two picks, don't love. You know, again, 6th round. We're not going to, like, bury them too much, but Riley Leonard, I mean, we know Riley Leonard's not really an NFL quarterback. He's just more of a big body athlete, but, you know, maybe they'll get him on some, like, wildcat plays or something at the goal line. I don't know. Then the 7th round pick, among the top, like, I guess, 3, there was, like, 2 or 3 7th round picks that I really liked. Hunter Waller is one of them, who is just an awesome box safety. If you're asking him to play up top, that's not his role. He is just going to be a firm, really good role player. And he was a player that I did actually even bring up in my top 100 board. I had him in like the 120s or 130s range. I had him somewhere there, but he was 100% like a top 150 player for me, and someone that I would have taken in like the 4th or 5th round, because I'm like, well, he's going to be a very specific role, but I think he's going to do that role pretty well as just a 3rd safety, a box player who can play the run, who could tackle. He's not an awful coverage player. He's okay, but I mean, at 232, yeah, I'll take that, because that's a dude who can actually play a couple hundred snaps every single year for you. So I think Hunter Waller was a really good value pick. So, you know, in totality with this draft class, the Colts ended up having 8 draft picks. And they had 4 picks I really liked, and then the other 4 picks I didn't like. Now, I think with Giddens being a backup running back, Hunter Waller is a number 3 safety. I gave him A picks, but ultimately those are not guys who are going to be like crazy impact players. So that's kind of why it knocks the grade a little bit, because while you did get 2 really good value picks, it's like, well, long term, what is Giddens and Waller going to do for you? Not anything probably crazy, unless Giddens does end up becoming like a star back for them, which I do think there's a small chance, but, you know, you're not betting on that. So I think you got yourself some really nice backup running back, an awesome number 3 safety, a long-term number 2 edge, and hey, you got a guy who could be a top 5 to 10 tight end in the league. So a very solid draft class all around. Just would have liked them to do, again, a little bit better with those mid-round picks, just like the Jaguars. I didn't love what the Jaguars did with their 3rd round picks, and, you know, same thing with the Colts. I didn't love what they did with the 3rd round and the 4th round pick. But the number 1 draft in this division, and I think an argument for maybe my favorite draft, they did get that 1 to 5th overall tier for me, and getting that A grade. I love this draft so much. The Tennessee Titans, I think, did a incredible job. I'm not going to say like turning the team around, but giving yourself a lot of fun players to look forward to for the future. And if I were a Titans fan, I mean, I know it's been kind of down in the dumps a lot ever since you made the AFC Championship, and you had a couple of nice years, but the whole Vrabel situation, and then you let Derrick Henry go, and you kind of watched him, you know, waste a year or 2 in Tennessee, and Tannehill wasn't good, and then the Malik Willis wasn't the franchise quarterback that some people were maybe hoping. Titans have been really down on their luck, and then Will Levis, I mean, the only thing the Titans did last year was just give us Will Levis memes, so you needed something to be happy about, and for me, if I were a Titans fan, I am celebrating this draft class. So obviously, you start at the top, you take Cam Ward. I mean, yeah, the best quarterback in this draft, clear cut. And maybe, you know, overall he was like my 27th player, but obviously it's quarterback positional value dictates that's like, yeah, I mean, he may have been like the 27th best player in the class, but in terms of value, he's easily a top 10 value player in this class because he's a quarterback. So I think Cam Ward is the only quarterback that I would bet on in this class to be a good quarterback, and I really love what Cam Ward can do. So you get him at number 1, obviously the correct pick. The only real like ding on this draft class, and maybe what prevented it from being an A+, is I'm not like a big Oladipo fan. I had him a little bit lower than a 2nd round pick. I think I would have been like okay with him in the 3rd round. I would have loved him in the 4th round. He wasn't gonna make it to the 4th round, but 2nd round's a little rich for me for a guy who has 1 year of edge rush play. And I understand the draft pick because the highs of Oladipo is like really high, and he makes some really special plays, and it gives you an indication. It's like, man, we might have something here. I mean, he's only played 1 year at edge, and it's like, if you give him a little bit more time, you work with him, and you can get him to be a little bit more consistent, maybe you do have a true special edge rusher. But this is a player that's going to take a lot of work and is far from a guarantee, because with only 1 year under his belt, and that 1 year being very inconsistent and very just full, very much full of just splashes, how much of those splashes can you really get to be more sustained? How many of those plays can just be normal plays for Oladejo? Is he just going to be a number 3 splash rotational edge rusher, or can he be a true starter for you? I think there are questions there. And, you know, hey, if it works out for them, this is more so a risky pick. If it works out, it'll look like an A-plus draft for them, because you leave with your franchise quarterback, you'll leave with a potential star edge rusher, and then you go and make a couple of picks afterwards that I loved. Because how about my guy Kevin Winston at pick 82? This was a dude that I talked up a lot in my top 100 video. This was a guy who also I was kind of one of the biggest outliers on when it came to my grade of them versus consensus. Consensus had Kevin Winston as a day 2 prospect, and some had him, you know, somewhat high, but like I slapped a true round 1 grade. This is a guy who, if like, I think I said it in the video, if like the Eagles took him in round 1, or if a team like that took him at like pick 30, 31, 32, I would have called it a good pick. Like I probably would have given it like an A-. I probably would have given it a really high pick, or high grade. I love Kevin Winston, and this is a player who, in a sense, like Oladejo, just 1 year of real full-time starting experience at the safety spot for Penn State, because he was injured last year. He had, I think it was a partially torn ACL, so I think not a full tear, not like a, you know, a disastrous, you know, his knee got blown out, destroyed injury, but like a partial tear took him out. He only played like 2 games last season. This is a dude who I think under his belt has like 15 career starts, but the 1 full season he played at Penn State the year before was a really good year, and there was a real hype for Kevin Winston going into this season before he got hurt, thinking, like, man, could he be a first-round pick? And the tape you see for his 1 full year as a starter is incredible. This is a dude who is got all the athleticism that you would want in a safety, who's a full built player. This is not like a undersized 5'10", 190 player who, you know, is just a cover guy. And this is not just a 6'3", 220 guy who's only a tackler. This is a dude who finds himself in between at like 6'1", 210, and is one of the best tacklers in this draft, for one, because in his full season in 2023, did not miss a single tackle. One of the best tacklers in the draft, one of the best run-stopping safeties in the draft. And on top of that, you would think, like, okay, he's just a box safety, so you don't want him playing up top, you don't want him in coverage too much. No, he can cover too. He can go and play on some tight ends if you need him to. He can go, I wouldn't say true center fielder, but he can go and play every spot at safety. He could play close to the line of scrimmage, he could play far back, he could play in the box, he could play maybe even a little bit of nickel. I would say maybe not ideally you would want him at nickel, but I think he can do it. This is a dude who is a complete safety for me, and I think is going to be an absolute star for this defense. You know, I don't want to go as far as to say, like, compare him to a Titan safety from a few years back that was really good, but I think he could be as good for this team as Kevin Byard was, who was at one point, I think, like an all-pro safety for them and was racking up interceptions. This is a dude for me who has true all-pro potential at the safety spot, and is one of those handful of players that you kind of stake your claim and say, that's my guy, this is the dude who I believe in. I believe in Kevin Winston to be one of the best safeties in this, not just in this draft class, but I think he could be a top 10 safety in the league. I absolutely love the physical tools that he has. I love what he brings to the table. I love his upside. I love his floor as well. I don't think it's crazy to plug him in as a starter day 1. Like, I think he's just such an incredible player, and to get him at 82 is amazing. I think it would have been an A-plus pick if a team picked him in the 2nd round. If I could give out something higher than an A-plus, I would. Whatever the highest grade is, Kevin Winston gets it. It's an amazing pick. Now, the positivity does take a little step back, because Chimere Dike in the 4th round from Florida, I mean, don't love that pick. I will say, if this pick were literally just who they scooped up as an undrafted free agent and Xavier Restrepo, I wasn't like the biggest Xavier Restrepo guy, but they got him in undrafted free agency. If you just like close your eyes and just imagine that they spent their 4th round pick on Xavier Restrepo, I would have like maybe even, bumped that grade a little bit. But if it were Restrepo here, I would have given it like a B minus or like a B. Like I would have given it like a pretty solid grade. I don't really understand the DK pick at 103, like basically top of the 4th round. I don't love that. It was the only pick in this draft where I'm like, man, really? Of all the receivers, especially considering they took another 4th round receiver who we'll get to in a second that I love. I was just really confused by this one, but maybe it'll work out. I mean, it's again one of those situations where it's like, man, I loved like all these other picks. I loved Cam Ward, obviously that was an obvious pick though, but I love Kevin Winston, Io Manor, Gunnar Helm, some of these other picks. It's like, well, maybe I'm wrong about Chimeri DK being a 4th round pick, but they go also in the 4th round and take Gunnar Helm, who I think is a very good pick for this team as well. I do like Chigakonkwo, and for all you Chigakonkwo fans out there, I don't think this will infringe upon what he does for this team. I just think it'll allow him to play a more natural role in the offense as a, flex tight end who could be one of those players who you line up in a multitude of positions and you can give him some like play action, roll out, dump off, catch and run, line him up at like these flex positions in the backfield and do a lot of other stuff at tight end. Well, Gunnar Helm is going to be your more traditional lineup, in-line type of tight end. I think he probably fell a little bit just because of the fact that he's not crazy upside. He very much is going to be like your Cole Kmet, your Hunter Henry, that type of tight end is what you're getting. And it's not a spectacular pick and one that you're maybe celebrating, but for a safety blanket type of tight end, every rookie quarterback should have a tight end like a Gunnar Helm on their team to just be a very safe player. And I do think there is a little bit of upside to be, like a very high-end version of that. So maybe like a, not quite Jake Ferguson, maybe Jake Ferguson. I think he's maybe on the higher end of those generic possession tight ends who can do a little bit more for you, maybe after the catch and a little bit more for you in terms of stretching the field. But at the very least, you're getting like a okay tight end who is going to be a nice little safety blanket, traditional inline, and I think the duo of him and Chigakonkwo can be a very nice complementary duo if you want to go in 2 tight end packages. But then we get to the other 4th-round pick and a player that once again, I love, Alec Io Manor. Are you kidding me? Why was he here in the 4th round? Like, seriously, why was he here in the 4th round? At least with Kevin Winston, I'm sitting here saying, well, okay, he was injured. Maybe some people forgot about him, and people like the recent tape the most, and, that always will knock players down, but it's like, I know Io Manor wasn't as good last year, but, like, he played, and he played pretty well, and do you see the upside with Io Manor? I see a crazy upside with Io Manor, and a player that I would have very confidently, again, like Kevin Winston, just taken in the 2nd round and probably would have given it a good grade. So the fact that he was sitting here at 4, and, Chimeri DK and some of these other receivers that went, I was sitting here scratching my head like, really? These are who you're taking over Alec Io Manor? I know what receivers you're taking, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round for roles. You're taking number 2s, number 3s, number 4s. You're taking, just maybe strict deep threats, possession guys. You're taking guys to fill roles. But when you get the opportunity to take a guy who could just be a really good player, like a true number 1 or number 2 type of player for you, at some point it's just got to be a little too much of a fall. And for Io Manor, I know everyone wants to bring up the Travis Hunter game, and that is, the high end of Io Manor, where you're sitting there saying, like, this dude made Travis Hunter have to switch off of him and absolutely, like, caught one on the top of his head, which was incredible. That is the high, but that is not it with him. It's not like he was just a one-game wonder, and maybe some people do think that. He's like, oh, he's just a one-game wonder. All I know is the Travis Hunter game, but, like, watch him in other games. He does really good stuff. This is a dude who's a big body player, who's got good speed, who's maybe needs to get a little bit more consistent with his hands. He's not a finished product by any means, and he is a younger player. This is a dude who I think is a redshirt sophomore coming out, so he could have stayed in college a little bit longer. I do think, I don't even think he would have expected to fall down here at the 4th round. I thought he was probably thinking he was going to be a top 50 pick, so, unfortunate that he just fell this far, but he could have stayed in college a little bit longer. He does have some refinement that he needs on his game, but, like, he's young, And he's got everything you want from a physical profile. He's got the size, the speed, the flashes, and also he's just one of these players who, I said it on the video for the top 100 when I was breaking him down. Like, he's one of those guys who shields out defenders very well. He's the type of dude who you throw the football to over the middle of the field, and, you know, he'll shield, he'll catch, he could break the tackle, and before you know it, Io Manor catches a 15-yard crosser and is off to the races after one broken tackle, and he just goes for 60 yards on your defense. On top of that, he can line up on the outside. I think he can be a true outside receiver, which it's hard to find, or harder to find nowadays. Not impossible, but most of the time nowadays, you're finding these teams putting their best receivers in the slot, and not a lot of guys have like true outside experience or true outside ability. I do think his release package needs to get a little bit better, but for a dude who's played a decent amount on the outside and has some outside ability to him, again, 4th round for that? Again, one of the best picks of the draft. Like, the Titans genuinely went out here and made 2 of the best value picks in this entire draft, in my opinion. Both Io Manor and Kevin Winston were dudes who I would have even considered in, like, maybe 1st round with Io Manor. I can at least see, you know, some of the stuff that he needs to get better at and say, maybe not 1st round, but I'd put a round 1 to 2 grade on him. And for Kevin Winston, put a round 1 grade on him. These are guys that were clear-cut top 50 players at the very least, and you got him at 82, and you got Io Manor at 136. That's just incredible to me. And I do also think the path for Io Manor to see the field, even early on, it's not like a tough path. I mean, you got Calvin Ridley and you got Tyler Lockett, who they just signed. Then what? Chamari DK, I'm pretty sure Io Manor's going to pass up DK pretty quickly. The only other guy you're really fighting with is Treylon Burks. We know Treylon Burks has not been very good. I think at the very least, Io Manor should be the team's number 3 most productive receiver, and I think he'll rotate as the 3rd guy when they want to do certain stuff and put him on the outside. So I think Io Manor is going to get to see playtime early on, and I really hope he gets to prove people wrong, because also, him with Cam Ward is just another thing. That's just going to be so fun. I mean, him and Cam Ward, what a duo that could be. But the other 3 picks, nothing crazy. You take an interior offensive lineman, you take a safety. Khalil Mullings could be a nice little, like, thumper back for you. A little power player for, like, a 3rd down and 1, 4th and 1. Maybe some snaps he could play at fullback even, goal line. Just a little short yardage power back. So nothing crazy there, but solid for a 6th round pick. But overall, this Titans class, I absolutely loved it. One of my favorites. And we go out there and take 2 of my guys, like 2 of the dudes that I am rooting for in this class, and 2 of the guys that I am believing in Kevin Winston and Io Manor. I'm going to be rooting for you, and I'm going to be wanting to watch some Titans games next year for the first time in a long time. So Titans fans, let me know what you think. Are you as excited for this draft class as I am? And maybe if you weren't and you watched this, maybe you could be a little bit more excited, because if you didn't know who Kevin Winston was, I would recommend you get to know him. And if you thought Io Manor was just a 1-game wonder against Travis Hunter, I would say also get to watch him a little bit, as I think you got 2 special players on your hands. At the very least, I'd be shocked if neither one of them became great. I think at least one of these players is going to be a really great impact player for you, and I would even say I think both can be truly amazing for this team. And if Cam Ward hits, then you're going to be looking back on this draft class and saying, man, we got our franchise quarterback, we got a potential star edge rusher, we got a star safety, we got a starting tight end, we got a starting receiver. I mean, what more do you want? So let me know what you thought. If you agree with these grades, disagree, if I was too low on maybe the Jaguars, too high on another team, whatever the case is, let me know. I'm trying to get these videos out day after day, 1 by 1. 8 videos in a week is a lot, so all support is much appreciated. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.